Hey, Game. Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy
So,
New Year.
welcome back. Na-miss nyo ba to?
Yes.
Namin. Yes.
I'm very excited to be doing this with you guys again. And what a journey it has been, diba? I just want to thank you and appreciate everyone, no, for sticking with this of our in-depth study, very in-depth study, diba? Of the first book of the Bible. And since it's the new year, it's only fitting na we start with the new story, with the new set of characters, diba? At yan yung gagawin natin tonight. And we are going to be ambitious kasi we are going to be covering 2 chapters in 1 session. Okay? Pwede ba yun? Kaya bilisan na natin. Okay. Kung naalala nyo, Jacob was introduced to us last time, diba? And let's do a review lang. Very quickly, unmute your mics and tell me anong natatandaan nyo about Jacob's personality and character. Anong klaseng tao siya? Anyone?
Deceiving.
Masunurin sa nanay. Kahit hindi niya tama.
Mama's boy.
Mama's boy.
Mama's boy.
Mama's boy,
Tapos,
sinungaling,
homebody.
manloloko,
Deceitful. Spoiled.
balasubas, di ba?
Later.
So, siya yung tao na ayaw mong maging kaibigan kasi lagi kang nag-aalanganin kung totoo hindi yung sinasabi niya sa'yo. Pero if you see the life of Jacob, I cannot help but really be reminded of the words to the most famous hymn of all time, Amazing Grace. Kasi ano sabi doon? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Si Jacob was a wretch by any standards. And yet by God's sovereign grace, pinili pa rin siya to carry this line that will eventually be the nation of Israel, kung saan manggagaling si Jesus. And that's where we are going to begin tonight, no? Yung story niya. And it's a story that's going to revolve around this big theme of God's grace. Alam niyo, pag talagang inisip natin, one of the hardest things that we have to deal with when it comes to God is this concept of grace. We like to talk about it all the time, pero for a lot of us, we don't actually fully believe it. Kasi we are not built that way to receive something freely. As in, tatanggapin mo na lang and be motivated to live a holy and godly life because of it. As children, hopefully, you were taught good values, no? The value of hard work, of earning your keep, of earning your way. And some people, and I personally know a few, don't even consider the money theirs unless they earn it. No? Walang passive income sa kanila. Alam niyo yun? Unless pinagpawisan ko to o pinagpaguran ko to, I don't deserve it. There are people like that. And in many ways, it's a very commendable trait. Pero the problem is, a lot of us are also that way with God. I need what He's offering. I love what He's offering. Pero in order to get it, I have to earn it. Hindi ko pwedeng tanggapin na lang yan. Pero itong problema doon. No matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. Kasi God is perfect. It doesn't need anything, di ba? So this whole concept of earning something before God is a false doctrine that actually makes no sense. But this is where grace comes in, no? Grace is God bestowing freely His favor towards the most undeserving people. And at the very top of that list is Jacob. Jacob. This guy is so unworthy, so undeserving of mercy, of grace, of blessings and promises. And yet God will rain all of this down on him in a way that will shock even all of us as we see it. Kasi he is going to discover the depth of God's love and provision para sa kanya. Now si Jacob up until this point is not a spiritual man at all. No? Last time nakita natin that he valued spiritual blessing kaya he connived and deceived in order to get it. Pero ano ba yun, di ba? Did he even ask God about it? No. In fact, there is no record whatsoever of Jacob praying about anything at all before this. Nakita natin si Abraham praying and worshiping God from the moment we met him, di ba? Nakita din natin yung kay Isaac. Pero si Jacob, wala. Pero by God's grace, we will see this unspiritual man start to change dito sa chapter. Change completely? No. Pero this is why makaka-relate tayo lahat dito. Kasi he is a work in progress. Now, how many of you here consider yourself a work in progress? Say me sa chat room. Tingnan natin. See? Probably lahat tayo. Di ba? I think all of us would be proud to wear a jacket that says, "Have patience with me. God is not done with me yet." Agree ba kayo? Papagawa ba tayo niyan? Just like si Jacob dito, and we will see that grace and goodness ni God as we go through this story. Okay? So ready na ba kayo? Umpisa na tayo. Open your Bibles to Genesis 28 and let's start with verse 1 to 5. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of peoples. May he give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may take possession of the land of your sojournings that God gave to Abraham." Thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. Okay, quick recap lang kasi matagal tayong nag-break. Last chapter, kung naalala nyo, niloko ni Jacob pareho si Isaac at si Esau. Di ba? And at the end of that chapter, we saw Esau angry. At sa sobrang galit niya, plano niyang patayin si Jacob. So itong pag-alis niya dito is actually their mother's plan of calming things down. Sabi ni Rebecca sa kanya, palamigin mo muna yung ulo ni Esau. Go away for a few days. Not knowing na yung few days na yun will turn to be 20 years. At hindi na sila magkikita ulit. Now si Isaac naman, he had this conviction moment na I've been fighting this for so long. Gusto ko talaga si Esau, pero I now realize it was always supposed to be Jacob. So sabi na, go to the land of our ancestors, to your mother's family, and find yourself a wife doon. Kasi please lang, if you're gonna be carrying this seed, wag dito sa mga babae sa Canaan. Kasi they have a totally different belief system from us. At hindi pwede yun sa mata ni God. Okay? Now, Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife from there. And that as he blessed him and he directed him, you must take a wife from the Canaanite women, and that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and gone to Padan Aram. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac, his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife. At tingnan niyo to. Besides the wife that he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. Now, bakit to nandito? Well, it's simply to let us know na umaasa pa si Esau doon sa blessing. It's a light bulb moment para sa kanya. Kasi who married Canaanite women? He did. So nasa isip niya, siguro kaya ayaw bigay sa akin yung blessing na yan dahil dito sa mga babaeng pinakasalan ko. And in order to perhaps regain that favor from his father, he went out and married somebody na galing sa angkan nila. Sabi dito yung anak ni Ishmael. And this is a very twisted way of thinking, no? Which is consistent sa character ni Esau. I'm going to do evil so that good may come. He was already tampering with the issues of polygamy. Kasi dalawa na yung asawa niya. Tapos ngayon dadagdagan pa niya ng isa, hoping na baka, but that's never going to happen. And by the way, address ko na lang din to. Kasi reading this and then later reading Jacob also having multiple wives, some people actually use this as an excuse say na having multiple wives is okay kasi nasa Bible naman. Guys, not everything described in the Bible is prescribed in the Bible. Okay? We already learned in the beginning of Genesis that God commanded a man and to leave his father and mother and be joined with his wife. Singular. And so even when we are seeing this reoccurring issue o dito sa mga pamilyang to, hindi ibig sabihin nun that God approves of it. Okay? I had to say about this. Sabi na, the Bible is in a sense like a newspaper. It reports the facts, certainly doesn't condone all. The fact that San Francisco Chronicle reports a shooting in Arkansas doesn't mean the Chronicles approve of the shooting. Exactly, di ba? This is why context is super important. At hindi ka pwedeng mamili lang kung ang part ng Bible lang gusto mong paniwalaan. Kasi diyan tayo nagkakaroon ng fake news, di ba? It's because people take things out of context. Di man lang binahat, nag-react ka na dahil sa nakita mo sa headline. Guys, that is not the way to read the Bible. God never approved of polygamy. And unfortunately for this brother, they are going to learn the hard way. So Jacob left Beersheba and he went toward Haran. And he came to a certain state because the sun has set, taking one of the stones of the place, and he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. So ito na. He is effectively running away dahil sa mga ginawa niyang kalokohan. And I'm sure at this time, he is filled with all sorts of emotions and questions. Will I ever see my parents again? Paano kung sumunod si Esau? Baka patayin ako dito. Ano na mangyayari? Nakuha ko nga yung blessing pero nandito ako ngayon in the middle of nowhere, mag-isa. I'm so alone. And that first night, I'm sure with all these things going through his mind, he's anxious and uneasy. Diba? Every little sound, pag may narinig siya, ano yun? Diba? And this place where he is at, Bethel, is in the mountain ranges of Israel where it's rocky and barren. Wala ka talagang makikita doon. Some people would call this a God-forsaken place. Kasi nga, it's hard to imagine God hanging out in the middle of nowhere, di ba? So here he is, all alone. Ang dilim at ang unan niya, bato. Kaya it's literally a hard rock hotel. At imagine niyo, no? Imagine niyo sarili niyo in Jacob's place. With all these thoughts going through his mind as you look up into the night sky. and you see the universe. 100 billion stars just in the Milky Way galaxy. And we have 100 billion other galaxies. It's so vast. And here I am with all these problems. And God seems so distant, so far away. Ano ba pake niya sa akin? It reminds me of this psalm from David. Sabi niya, when I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him? And the son of man that you care for him? Most probably, ganun yung nararamdaman ni Jacob ngayon, di ba? Pero that's why he will discover here, no, as he falls asleep, that he has a God, a great big God, who is in fact very, very mindful of him. And is going to shock him, and more importantly, is going to change him. Kasi from now on, he's going to be more spiritual, thank God. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, the God of Isaac, and the God of Isaac. And the land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring will be like dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Now, dreams are common, no? Nabasa ko somewhere that we actually dream every night, hindi lang natin natatandaan. Pero this particular dream is uniquely from the Lord. Sabi dito, he saw a ladder. In Hebrew, it literally means a staircase or a stairway, no? So it's a stairway to heaven. And he sees angels going up and down. Una, it says they are ascending, which means galing sila dito sa earth, no? And then there are some coming down, perhaps like may shifting sila, no? One shift has finished its work and they're going up, and the other shift is beginning, so bumababa sila. And the whole point of this is that God, even when he seems so far away, is actually involved in human affairs. God is involved in what is going on sa mundo natin. COVID, Omicron, God is all overseeing all of us. Kanina, Jacob is thinking, I am in this God-forsaken place. Kasi I have lied and I have cheated. Now I am running for my life. All alone. At si God, I don't know where God is, pero sigurado ang layo-layo niya. And then he gets this wild dream of angels ascending and descending. At di lang yun, God spoke to him and gave him a promise. And what I find interesting dito is the Lord doesn't reprimand him. Kasi imagine nyo lang, no? Kung ikaw si God at nakita mo yung pinagagawa ni Jacob, kaya siya nandito ngayon. Ano yung una mong sasabihin sa kanya? Di ba? And by the way, naisip nyo din ba na perhaps the reason why Jacob got this dream is because he will not listen to God any other way. Kasi si Abraham at si Isaac, hindi naman sila naka-experience ng ganyan. So don't think that spiritual people don't think that people are necessarily more spiritual when they get a spiritual encounter with God. No? Sometimes the most ungodly people in the Bible are the ones that get a dream from the Lord. Natandaan niyo si Abimelech? He doesn't even believe in God. Pero since the Lord can't get through to them habang gising sila, It's when they're knocked out, it's when they're sleeping at hindi sila makapalag. That's when God speaks to them. So when God can speak to you in that still small voice, kasi ang tigas ng ulo mo, sometimes He may need to next level it para makuha niya yung attention mo. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are more spiritual, no? In fact, it may mean the exact opposite kasi you don't want to listen. Jacob was not listening to God at all. Pero now God got his attention and he is listening. And amazingly, the first words God speaks are not words to reprimand. I would reprimand him. Jacob, anong pinagagawa mo? Lying, cheating, stealing. Tingnan mo na saan ka ngayon. It's all your fault. But no. The words God spoke are words of grace. These are words of promise. It's basically the same promise that he told Abraham and Isaac. And I love that he ends with this. Sabi na, behold, I'm with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Amazing. Guys, this promise dito sa verse na to is specifically para kay Jacob. Kasi being here all alone, with all these things going through his mind, he needed to hear this. He needed to hear this because there's a lot of doubting going on. At tayo, we need to hear that too. Kasi this same promise that is being declared to Jacob is also declared to us sa New Testament. Paul said this in Philippians. And being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will complete it. At ang ganda ng wording dito. Kasi it's not probably or almost certain or you can hope for. No, it's you can be confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you shall complete it. Are you a child of God? If the answer is yes, then he's never going to leave you nor forsake you. You can be confident of that because he is working on your life. Pero that's also why if you are a true child of God, then you must read and hide the word of God in your heart. Kasi how can you remember anything if you're not reading about it in the first place, di ba? We need these reminders every single day sa buhay natin, hindi lang once or twice a week, much like si Jacob dito. Kasi he needed this more than anything else at this moment. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and he said, surely the Lord is in this place and I did not know it. So now we are being told what I have been telling you kanina pa, na he did not believe that God is in this place. Sabi na, I am in this God-forsaken place. I don't know where God is, pero it's definitely not here. And then he wakes up and he goes, wow, mali pala ako. God is in this place and I did not know it. Kala ko ang layo-layo ni God sa akin because I was disobedient. But he is with me. Hindi the Lord was here last night. No, he was right here, present right now with me. Guys, that is God's amazing grace and mercy. It is not dependent upon what we did or did not do. Jacob was disobedient and carnal and uninterested in his own spiritual growth, but God is faithful to those who he calls his children. And Jacob was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? There's none other than the house. This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. And so this is how he responded dun sa panaginip niya, no? He worshiped by commemorating the spot where God spoke to him. And I just want to point this out, no? Kasi it's not to say that God is only in this place. Kasi some people are so, they put too much emphasis on a particular place. All of us know, all of us here knows that God is everywhere, di ba? Kasi kung hindi, paano niya mapututupad yung promise niya to be with Jacob wherever he goes? But it's just interesting for me that this amazing encounter with God produced this amazing time of worship from this man who wasn't really all that spiritual in the first place. And I pray the same for us, no? I'm always praying for everyone here to have that same personal encounter with God. It may not be as dramatic as having a dream with the ladder and the angels, pero maybe just in your own quiet place, in your own quiet time. When you are alone, by yourself, spending time only with Him, meditating on His word, God will speak to you. That's why ang kulit ko. Read God's word, read God's word. Outside of FPF, outside of church, read God's word. Read the Bible and let Him speak through you, through His word. Because that's how you're going to get that personal encounter with Him. Moving on. And he called the name of the place Bethel, or house of God. But the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. Now, initially, sa una mong pagbasa nito, parang may kondisyon siya, di ba? Parang nagseset siya ng ultimatum. God, if you do these things for me, then you will be my God. And to be honest, it may probably the case kasi ganyan naman yung personality niya, di ba? He bargained with his brother, he deceived his father. Kailangan manalo siya lagi. But we need to understand that the word if sa scripture can and should also oftentimes be translated with the word since. And many Bible scholars believe that is the case dito sa verse na to. So instead of sounding like, if God will do this for me, then I will do that. No, it was more of a response to God's grace. It's since God made all these promises to me, therefore I want to submit and worship. And this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you. So he worshiped by commemorating, then he worshiped by committing, now he's worshiping by contributing. At dito ako believe. Kasi he promised to give 10%. Ano tawag doon? Tithes, di ba? Pero this was centuries before the law and the concept of tithes was ever even developed. Sa panahon pa ni Moses yun. At this moment, in this time, there is no law, there is no requirement for tithing. Jacob just freely and voluntarily gave financially to the Lord as his way of worship and thanking God, who is the source from whom all blessings flow. Sa kanya naman lahat to, I did nothing to deserve this. He entrusted me with these things, this money for worship. Which is really how it should always be. Di ba? The Lord loves a cheerful giver. Alam niyo bakit? Kasi it's a form of worship. God never even wanted or intended your giving to be, or more specifically, your worship to be out of compulsion, or because you have to, or nagigilty ka lang kasi kaya kailangan ko gawin. Madalas ganyan tayo, di ba? Guys, it's a response. It's a way of thanking God for His amazing grace. Hindi I'm going to give because somehow I'm going to get some kind of benefit back for doing so. Guys, alam niyo ba, the only reason why you woke up this morning is not 99% God and 1% you. No, it is all Him. That's grace. At tanungin niyo sarili niyo. Ngayon, how are you responding to that today? God's grace. Think about that for a moment. Inom muna ako. Okay. Let's move to chapter 29. At dito, this is where the deceiver gets deceived. Up until this point, Jacob was the deceiver, di ba? He was the one doing the conniving and the scheming. Pero dito he will meet his match. Kasi he is about to meet the master schemer. And that's Uncle Laban. Tingnan natin. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well, the flocks were watered. The stone of the well's mouth was large. And when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. Now, before we go further, balik muna tayo a few chapters to when Abraham wanted to get a wife for his son Isaac. Ito yung, excuse me. Ito yung kinover ni Pastor Dennis para sa atin, kung natandaan niyo yun. Abraham sent his most trusted servant to find a wife for his son, di ba? So si Isaac, he didn't get to pick his wife. He didn't even get to see his wife until they were engaged. And I'm sure all of you here will say arranged marriages, kalokohan yan. Di ba? That's so backward. However, we also saw Abraham's servant doing his task carefully and prayerfully. Bawat galaw niya, he was praying and praising the Lord for providing. Ngayon, compare that to Jacob dito. He's not praying at all about this. And he will choose his wife based only upon what his eyes see and what he feels about it. Now, ito ang tanong. Who is better off? Ano tingin nyo? Well, makikita natin yung sagot in the next verses. And yes, alam ko na pwede mong sabihin na ano bang pinagsasabi mo? Tama naman yung napili niya. Well, maybe yes. Pero everything that led up to it and everything that came after it did not turn out the way he expected it. In fact, it was a complete disaster. Tingnan natin. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We're from Haran." So naisip si Jacob, ayos, nakarating na ako. Ito na yun. And he said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They said, "We know him." And he said to them, "Is it well with him?" They said, "It is well. And see, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep." Now, to the rest of the world, when they tell a story like this, they will see this as a coincidence, di ba? Serendipity is a word that is often used. Pero alam naman natin lahat that there's no such thing as coincidences with God. This is all providence, arranged naturally, pero it was all supernatural. Now, tingnan nyo anong sabi ni Jacob. And he said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them." But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep. So in short, ano sinasabi na dito? Ba't kayo nandito? Ang aga-aga pa. Water the sheep and let them go feed. Doon, no? Sa field. Now, bakit na sinasabi to? Naawa ba siya doon sa mga kambing? Of course not. What he is really saying is this. May nakita akong magandang babaeng parating, umalis-alis kayo dito kasi magdidiskarte ako. Tingnan natin kung gaano kagaling dumiskarte si Jacob. Okay? While he is still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Okay? So far, so good. Then Jacob kissed Rachel, and what? Allowed. Ano ulit? Hindi ko alam. This is probably the strangest verse sa buong Bible. Nakita na si Rachel, nagpakita ang gilas, pinainom na yung mga kambing niya, tapos, which is creepy and romantic depending on how you look at it. Pero pagkatapos na hinalikan, umiyak, naghagulgol. Ladies, I don't know how your man won your hearts. Pero I'm pretty sure this is not the way. Tama ba ako? Hindi ko alam. Hindi ko ma-explain. No? Pa-explain mo sa akin yung Sodom and Gomorrah. Sige, pero ito hindi ko talaga alam. Maybe he is just overcome with emotion. No? It was a long journey. Pero seriously, it's weird. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. Guys, siguro hindi natin kailangan maging theologian para makita that this is love at first sight, di ba? At alam niyo, scientists have this that study this, have this interesting theory. Ang tawag nila dyan is love mapping. It means that your brain is wired to lock on to certain characteristics of the opposite sex. At pag nakita mo yung characteristics na yun sa isang tao, it triggers that attraction, no? That bond that develops into infatuation, upon which people develop relationships. And here's a portion of an article I found about love mapping, no, by one of the leading experts on the study. Sabi niya, the issue of love at first sight brings up the speculation of biological origin, that you are hardwired to see somebody and then gravitate towards that person. But in terms of human courtship and marriage, several observations are important. The infatuation phase, this is kung nasaan si Jacob ngayon, no, tends to wane after 4 years or less. This may be in part to a reflection of the human's brain's inability to stay in a rev up mode over a long period of time. The waning of infatuation seems to play a role in divorces occurring in the early years of marriage. The longer the couples weather the years, the longer they tend to stay married. Now, bakit ko pinapakita to? Because Jacob is about to weather several years. Hindi 3 years or 4 years, but 14 long years. Just to show that he is really interested to go from infatuation to commitment in this relationship. Ganon siya ka-in love. Kasi tingnan niya to. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embrace him and kiss him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" At ito yung hinihintay-hintay ni Jacob na tanong. Sabihin mo sa akin kung anong gusto mo. Well, I'm glad you asked. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel's was beautiful in form and appearance. So to put it nicely, Leah is plain looking. Pero her sister is beautiful in every way. And Jacob loved Rachel. And he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." Now remember, kanina sabi natin, this is where Jacob will meet his match. Di ba? Kasi pansinin niyo yung verse. Never sinabi ni Laban na ibibigay niya si Rachel in exchange for the 7 years. Sabi lang niya, it's better that I give her to you than to anyone else. It was implied, pero it's never spelled out, which is something that a manipulative person would do. Di ba? So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Wow, di ba? So romantic. Here is a man who made a commitment to serve 7 years for a girl who he says he loves after just 1 month. Imagine you, 7 years. 1 Corinthians describes love by saying love is patient or love will wait. This guy is waiting 7 years. Meron ba tayong yan ngayon? Love is patient, love will wait. By the way, sa mga singles na nakikinig na to, if a guy tells you, "I cannot wait, if you really love me, you give yourself to me," cue mo na yun. Just let him go. Just saying, no? So they made the deal. And here's the irony dito sa story na to. The guy who deceived his father is about to be deceived by his future father-in-law. Funny how things turn out, di ba? Galatians 6, God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, he will also reap. At dito, Jacob is about to reap what he sowed. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife that I may go in to her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Now, alam ko yung iniisip ng iba. Anong klaseng slow na tao ba tong si Jacob? Pinalitan si Rachel pero hindi na napansin hanggang kinabukasan. Sarap batukan, di ba? Well, in fairness sa kanya, imagine where they are. This is 4,000 years ago. Gabi yun, they don't have lights like this. The bridal suite was kept dark on purpose. And the bridal veil was, well, para kang lumpia. Balot na balot. So, when they went in, they did what they did, and they woke up the next day. And yikes! No? Uncle! Ano ba itong ginawa mo sa akin? Who can blame him? Di ba? At anong sagot ni Laban? It is not done so in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Well, why didn't you say so in the first place? Ayan nga yung mga MO ng mga scammer, di ba? They conveniently leave out information, tapos pag nagkabukingan na, sasabihin nila, ay hindi mo kasi binasa yung fine print. Parang ikaw pa yung may kasalanan. And he said, complete the week of this one, and we would give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. Lupit, di ba? Ito gawin natin, magtrabaho ka ulit ng 7 taon at bibigay ko din sa iyo si Rachel. Pero si Jacob, he's in love. He's willing to do anything. And he did so. He completed her week, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. Now knowing what we know so far, it wouldn't surprise us to see na merong ding sibling rivalry itong magkapatid na to, di ba? Probably very similar dun sa rivalry ni Jacob at ni Esau. At syempre, kasabwat si Leah dito, hindi naman pwedeng magplano at magawa nila lahat to na wala siyang kaalam-alam. Di ba? I'm sure gusto din niya to. I'm not as pretty as my sister, pero I get to get this guy, this mysterious and handsome guy first. Wala sa Bible yun, inisip ko lang. Pero when this happened, I'm sure a light went on sa isip ni Jacob. Na yeah, sino ba ako para mag-complain? I did the exact same thing sa tatay ko. I also dressed up. I also lied to get what I want. I just reap what I sowed. And so therefore, the deceiver was deceived. Alam niyo, iniisip ko lang, if he would have approached this more carefully and prayerfully like Abraham's servant did when he was sent to look for a wife para kay Isaac, no? Perhaps things would have turned out a little different. Kung inupuan lang niya at kinausap niya naman sinsinan si Laban, maybe it would not have turned out like this. Hindi natin alam. Pero I do know this. He did not pray. Going into this, he did not ask God for guidance or wisdom. At ngayon, ang gulo ng buhay niya. Because he's now stuck with 2 wives. And I use the word stuck kasi hindi naman niya mahal yung isa. Na-imagine mo ba being tricked into marrying somebody na hindi mo mahal? Ang lala nun. And when the Lord saw that Rachel was hated, he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Now, I find this very interesting, no? Kasi it is as if there's this some sort of divine compensation. Di ba? Now, when you are lacking something in one area of your life, God can compensate that by giving you more in another area. And I love that thought. That God saw that, and in part of his grace was to enable Leah to conceive. Pero yung supermodel niya na kapatid was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son. And she called his name Reuben. For she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, meaning dahil hindi ako mahal ng asawa ko, for now, my husband will love me. Kasi Reuben simply means, tingnan mo Jacob, now we have a son. And this is a very big deal, especially since we know that every Jewish father wants to have a firstborn son. Di ba? Kasi nga siya yung magdadala ng pangalan and lineage ng pamilya. Especially sa pamilyang to where God's covenant promise will be fulfilled through. So sa isip ni Leah, now I'm going to earn my husband's love because I produce a son for him. Pretty Rachel didn't, but I did. At di pa tapos doon. Kasi she conceived again and bore another son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon, which means the one who hears. Again, she conceived and bore another son and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. At napansin nyo ba? Every single time she is trying to manipulate her husband's love with all these children na nilalabas niya. Therefore, his name was called Levi, which means attached. At pagkatapos nito, she will also bear Judah, which is the royal tribe from where Jesus will come from. No? And we will see in the next sessions kung bakit sa kanya dumaan yung bloodline at hindi doon sa mga kuya niya. And then she sees bearing, sabi dito. So in the end, we could say that she was compensated for being the unloved one by being the agent of the blessing of God to the world. At nung lumabas si Judah, Judah, by the way, means praise. And his name somehow reflected that her attitude was somewhat changed, no? Now she is worshiping God. Now she is praising him. Kanina, it's all about these children will now make my husband love me more. Ngayon, she's saying, alam mo, let's just praise the Lord for all these children. And the chapter ends. Abangan na lang ang susunod na kabanata kasi marami pang anak na lalabas sa susunod na chapter. Okay? Now here's a question I want to leave with you tonight. Just as Jacob was at Bethel, it was a barren place, no? A God-forsaken place. At sabi niya, the Lord isn't in this place. Now, ito ang tanong ko. Where is your Bethel? Or what is your Bethel? I'm sure you have one. You have some barren place. Maybe you are listening to this in a hospital bed, or you're in quarantine kasi you feel sick, or you are in trouble because of some failed venture or investment or business, whatever. Or your livelihood or your house was destroyed by the typhoon. Or maybe there are some deep family problems. And it's hard. It's barren. It feels God-forsaken. And you might say, God isn't in this place. Because you are in that difficult, dark place where you can't see any light. Sometimes not even a little bit of light. But what you have to realize is that this, whatever barren place you are in right now, that place can become Bethel, the house of God. Tandaan nyo, there was no temple sa Bethel. There was there's no literal structure. Pero Jacob calls it the house of God. As if to say, God's house is wherever God meets me in my painful, barren, and broken state. That's my Bethel. So will you let the Lord come to you on perhaps the very thing you hate, the very thing you fear the most? Isipin nyo, when Jesus came walking on water to his disciples sa Sea of Galilee, was it on a bright, sunshiny day where everything was nice and calm? Hindi, di ba? It was in the middle of a storm so strong, nakala nila mamamatay na sila. And the very thing that they are afraid of is the vehicle where the Lord came to them on. Yung tubig. Holocaust survivor Corrie ten Boom says, you will never know that Christ is all you need until Christ is all you have. Guys, perhaps the Lord will come to you in a powerful and dramatic way, riding on what you fear the most. Pero huwag kayong matakot. Kasi that place, that barren place, may become the house of God. And you say, mali pala ako. God is in fact in this place with me. Let's end with a story. There was a preacher who preached on Jacob's ladder one Sunday morning. Itong chapter natin. And his young son was listening in the audience. And it made a big impression on him, no? So nung gabing yun, this pastor's kid went to sleep and had a dream. Ngayon, nung kinaumagahan, sabi niya sa tatay niya, Daddy, I had an interesting dream last night after your sermon. Ah, talaga? Ano yun? Well, naginip kasi ako na merong hagdanan from earth to heaven. Oh, wow! Parang yung kay Jacob. Well, yeah, pero medyo iba to. Kasi walang angels dito. It's just a lot of people lining up. Actually, pati tayo, lahat tayo nandun. Nakapila tayo, waiting to go up. And at the base of that ladder, there was a bunch of chalk. And the idea is, bago ka aakyat, you take one of those little pieces of chalk at mamarkahan mo each step of the ladder for every sin you ever committed in your life. And I see people going up this ladder, slowly making up their way, marking each step. So nung turn ko na, sumunod lang ako. I started going up and marking the steps myself. Pero after a few steps, I looked up at nagulat ako kasi everyone was going up pero there was somebody coming down. Oh, that's interesting. Bakit may bumababa? Sino yung bumababa? Well, it's you, Dad. Nagmamadali ka pa nga eh. Ako? Bakit ako? Eh sabi mo kulang na yung chalk mo. Interesting dream. No? Pero I like Jacob's dream better than this kid's dream. Because we don't need more chalk, but more grace. More grace. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that save a wretch like me. A wretch, an undeserving wretch like me. Guys, God is in the business of saving wretches. The undeserving, the lost, finding them like the lost sheep and bringing them home and restoring them. Yes, God is perfect, pero He is all about fixing the broken things. May mga taong mahilig sa vintage na sasakyan, di ba? Ayaw nila yung mga latest na model, gusto nila yung mga makaluma kasi they get to restore it in all its glory. Because there is something about being restored. We admire that. And that is the sort of what God is like, no? Instead of a new model, instead of saying, ang gugulo ninyo, ang titigas ng ulo nyo, I'll just create a brand new model, a perfect human race na walang ganitong problema. He can say that, but no. He says, I'll take you in your sin, in your brokenness, and through the blood of my Son, I will restore you. Ako, I'm a fixed up vintage person saved by his blood, redeemed by grace. And he's done that with some people here. Pero I'm telling you right now, he wants to do it with every single person who is listening to this right now. He wants to save and restore every person who is willing to recognize that he or she is old and vintage and dirty because of their own sin that broke them. He wants to save you so that you can honestly say that I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Guys, don't miss God's amazing grace. Okay? Okay.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. The Lord has promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion me, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, The earth shall soon dissolve like snow. The sun forbear to shine, but God who called me here below will be forever mine, will be forever